unavailable.
Hello everybody, it's Sam. Today is Friday, May 8th, and this is my blog for today. I want to talk about service providers and lack of integrity. Integrity means that you do what you say you're going to do, and you don't keep secrets, and you're actually honest with yourself and other people. So, I am pissed off at service providers in general for lacking integrity and being out to make money. Here's an example. One of my friends is looking for residential services in her state, and she is very far away from Illinois. If she were closer, I would try to have her somehow get into a hospital here and then get into a facility here, because they seem to be the best out there, in the area for this mental health residential that I've seen that's Medicaid covered. So she, in her state, they have these things called board and care homes. I haven't heard of them until meeting her and doing research for her. They are basically unregulated residential places. So like group homes, but with people that don't have a license. They don't have any kind of board above them, like an organization above them, monitoring, doing evaluations, anything. So they are people that are just out to make money. A lot of them is foreign, people not from the U.S., don't speak English very well, probably have trouble getting other jobs, and so are just doing this to make money. You don't know their backgrounds, anything. And I guess she was in one before, and it was like disgusting. It had roaches, the food was horrible, it was malnutrition, everything. And she is looking for a living situation, and she wanted to be near this specific hospital that gave her good services, and I guess one of the options was these board and care homes. And the first time I ever looked into it, because I had no idea about it and I did research for her, I thought that they would be under like the Department of Mental Health or under some department at least. And literally all you see is like the person's name, like hello, like I'm trying to think of a name, like Sandra Rodriguez. Sandra Rodriguez, Rodriguez home. And that's all you see is their name and a phone number. And that's it, and their address. No website, no email, no licensing, no staff. It was probably Sandra Rodriguez and her husband living there making money, and that's about all she wrote. And that just makes me sick. That so many of these people live in places like that have no regulation. And not just bugs, like that's one level of neglect, and I understand that. I would absolutely be like traumatized living in a place with bugs, because I hate any kind of bugs, and bugs carry diseases, so that's just gross and disgusting. And the food, obviously that's disgusting. They can't even care about you physically. But people that aren't licensed and whatever, it could be anyone. It could be like some abuser that is running a home and abusing people day in and day out, and nobody is regulating it, so they can't even be like shut down. And people are getting abused. Like, I bet you that happens. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse on people that are very vulnerable. And I know they have this for mental health. I would hate to see if they had this for other disabilities, because I saw something on a TV show one time. I think it was about a foster home person that fostered people with disabilities, and they were saying how they got this. They're a very good foster home. They fostered like all these people with they adopted them. I think they adopted like a ton of kids with disabilities, people with disabilities. And they were talking about how this one girl or woman had cerebral palsy, and she couldn't even talk. And they were talking about at her last placement, she was abused by a man there that was a staff or whatever, and she couldn't even fight back. She couldn't even talk or anything. I think somehow like they got to know her, or somebody told them, and like she was abused, and they just felt awful because she had no way of fighting back, and it was like the most sad thing I ever heard. So, I bet that happens, and it's just sick that this is even around. And that hospitals recommend this, or that anyone in the profession could recommend someone go live there is sick. Okay, let's go to another example. Well, first of all, even group homes that are under like the Department of Mental Health can be really bad. Like I've heard, like my friend in Arizona was like so freaked out about me going to a residential because she was like, in our group homes, like in Arizona, they're in bad neighborhoods and they're like totally unregulated. That really doesn't make sense because I would think that under the Department of Mental Health, like there would be some regulation, but I've heard of like other intermediate places that are like here, ending up being shut down because they're really bad. But I mean, I guess it could happen. So I would say like do your research on group homes too. Another thing is I'm gonna say a little bit more about Freeman Place because I feel like I have to. And I don't really care what anybody says. I am, I need to say this because I don't want someone to think that it's, to come out there and live and then realize that it's not what they were told it was. When I went out to live there, they said that this is like, organization for the blind and, we have all this stuff. And like I went out to see it and it was very nice. And, it was very clean, very nice. The staff was very nice and they were very nice throughout my stay. I will say that, and a lot of the things they had weaving, and that was okay. I just didn't have the concentration for it. And they had other stuff, but like, looking at the, website and the advertising, I thought that they would have like a nice big technology thing. I mean, they hardly knew how to set the wireless, the Wi-Fi. They couldn't even do that. One staff member that works on Sundays who happened to know how to reset the Wi-Fi would come in and do it, and they would have no idea how to do it. Like, that's just sad. And technology is like the one thing that you would think the blind, when anyone thinks of the blind, even sighted people, it's like, okay, they use their technology, And this place didn't have technology. Like, my mom was teasing me. We were talking about like my Braille note and like if we needed to send it in. And she's like, well, you'll probably get like 10 of them when you're over at Freeman Place because they thought that there'd be like so many. But the technology was like pathetic. They had like this computer lab with computers that were like so bad. No one knew how to teach people computers. Like they would just get slammed around and it was just crazy. So that's just one example of like, they were like, oh yeah, we have this technology, and like they didn't. So when I went and toured there, it seemed like the staff was very good and they were like, oh yeah, we'll help you with this and that and helping you with like an internship or a job or whatever, and we'll help you with this different things. And I specifically sat down with the director of nursing at the time and said, I have mental illness, like this is what I go through, and do you guys have psychologists? Is your staff I forget if I asked if they were trained, but I said, is your staff capable of, do they know about mental illness enough to know about someone with post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety and depression and all those things? Do they know, how to deal with that? Oh, yeah, they do. They just will sit with people and just talk, and they know how to listen, and, yep, they have trainings on it and everything else like that. And I was like, okay, great. I said, do you guys have a psychologist that comes in? Oh, yeah, of course. Yep, we have psychologists. We'll get you set up with one. And, a psychiatrist and everything else like that. And, yep, it's good and okay. So I moved in there, and like I said, it was great. The studio apartment was great. Mine came with a couch. It was like a reclining couch. And that was good, and they do come once a week and clean. They do cook the meals. Some food is better than others. Some people really are nuts about the food. There was this one guy that used to work at a restaurant that lived there, and all I could think about was the food. But, as I started to be there, I realized that, like, the social worker wasn't a therapist. He was a really nice man. Really nice man. Had been in social work for the longest time. Really good listener. Amazing listener. And, was very thoughtful. Would listen to anything you had to say. And it was just great having him. He had a wonderful guide dog who was like a therapy dog, basically. And they were great. And some of the CNAs were really good. This one woman, Jackie, was very, very good. She'd do anything for you, and This one other one, Caleb, she was very nice. She was from Africa. She had emotional issues, but she was very good. So, some of the seniors were very good. Some of them weren't, and they would just sit and watch TV, and, they didn't care. But you get that different places. We get that here, and, it's overall pretty good here. What really bothered me was I got in there, and I said, okay, I want to see the psychologist. Oh, the psychologist only takes Medicare. What? Yeah, the psychologist only takes Medicare. I'm like, okay, you guys knew I had Medicaid before I came here. Oh, okay. Well, they didn't really have anything to say to that. So I'm like, well, can you guys refer me to anything? Oh, no, not really. We don't really know about any mental health services in the area. Okay. So I had to go and refer myself to places. I had to sit and call. And even, the social worker really had no idea, as nice as he was. And I had to call places, and I got into Trilogy. And every place I called, they were like, oh, well, you live at this place for the blind. They should be providing this and this and that services. And it was so frustrating to me as, the months went on, and I had to tell them and explain to them, no, they don't. I had to sit and explain and say, they don't provide psychologists. They don't provide mental health counseling. By that point, I knew they didn't provide anything for mental illness, that I had had several experiences of being triggered with my PTSD, trying to explain to people what was going on, and they didn't understand. They didn't understand my anxiety. They had no idea how to deal with depression. There are no check-ins. They don't go to, in spite of the fact that they're like, oh yeah, when I was visiting and touring, they're like, oh yeah, we come and we check on you and we see how you're doing and we set up a schedule and everything else like that, and they don't do that. They offer things like activities, and when meals are, and they just expect you to go do it, which is great for someone that can, and maybe that's just what they think. But it's, they don't realize how many people have mental illness and other disabilities along with blindness, that they can't just be expected to go do the activities without prompting, or without someone, coming with them, or whatever, or encouragement, or talking about why they can't do it and everything else like that. So it was just so sad to me that me and other people would sit in our apartments and miss meals, and they wouldn't even know, and, or come talk to you about it, and not do activities, and just sit there and be depressed, and, that's about it. And so, but like I said, but when I was getting referred to places, and of course they were like, oh, well, they were hesitant to take a blind person, even on an outpatient level. They were like, well, couldn't you get services from, the blind? They'd say, couldn't you get services from the Lighthouse? And you have to explain to them, they don't have a mental health services program. All the counseling they have is for people that have vision, or are going through vision loss, and that's only 6 weeks or 12 weeks or something. I talked to the psychologist that, worked there, and he was just like, yeah, it's only for 6 weeks or whatever, and we only do cognitive therapy, and it's just, kind of not even up to par with anything someone would need. So, so I had to explain all this, and of course, at first they didn't believe me, but then, as I talked to them, they believed me, and, I did see this intern once, and for a few weeks, this counseling intern, and as I would come to her with stories on it, she's like, yeah, I guess you're right, that, this is really not good, and, in terms of the mental health stuff. And so, they didn't have the psychologist, it said, oh, we have all these activities, and they really didn't have very many stimulating activities for anyone under 60, because they had, bingo, crossword puzzles. They were supposed to have a book club, but they didn't. They were supposed to have music therapy, but the music therapist left. They didn't have art therapy. They didn't really have any. They had a woman that did movement therapy, and that was kind of nice. Her name was Leslie, and she was really nice. And I went there a couple of times. But they didn't really, they were saying, oh yeah, we have all these different activities, but they didn't really. And they're like, oh yeah, we have these volunteers that come in and work with you. And they're like, no, we don't have volunteers. We tried that, it doesn't work. And God, the other thing is the activities director, I'm sorry, she can this is just the truth. She's not a registered activities director. And I feel that she has a lot lacking in her skills. And I would say that to her face, that she has a lot lacking in how she does things. And, it's just not a good scene, because I think her attitude is, well, we've tried this, we tried that, it doesn't work, and that's the end of it. And people don't want to do this and they don't want to do that, and so we're not going to bother. And that's just not how you run a department. And she's very disorganized and very scattered. So one of the things that I ended up doing out of pure necessity was being like helping her in the department, trying to explain to her that volunteers would be needed, writing down like people's needs, and then helping advertise for volunteers. And of course she's like, oh, well, we don't even have an orientation program. So luckily what they do have is they're set up with this Jewish organization that works with colleges, where they get interns for a year to come in. And that is at least one good thing, really good thing, that the interns that I've met were all very, very good. And we had very good relationships, and they helped immensely with stuff, because they came in with a fresh perspective, and they didn't have that attitude of, oh, well, we've tried this and we've done that, and oh, we don't even know about this and we don't know about that. When they came in and they would, research stuff. If they didn't know something, they would look it up. If they, they would just be like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this group, we're going to do this thing, and that's what we're going to do. And of course they would do it, and it would, 9 times out of 10 it would work, because they would come in with fresh, motivation and just do it. And so they helped make an orientation program. They made a video with pictures on it, with different things that we've been doing, and activities that we did go out for. Because they did do outings. They did an outing to a boat at Navy Pier, where we'd hang out on this boat. And they did outings to, like I said, Navy Pier. We would go to the Botanic Gardens and stuff like that, which was good. At least they did that. And, they did have people come in to present on, like, someone wrote a book or something about being blind, and they came and presented on that. Someone came from, like, the Cubs organization, because some of these people, all they could talk about is the Cubs game. So, they would talk about that, and, so they had things, but it wasn't, like, as diverse as they made it out to be. That's the problem. And so I did that. I also worked with activities to get other interns. We actually went to colleges, which never would have happened if I wasn't there. And we got interns to come in, and they were going to do like a resident handbook, which wasn't done before I came in. And I was like, how can people come in and, you talk to this person, you talk to that person, you talk to so many different people when you first sign in, and then how do you know, you don't have anything in front of you to say, okay, this is the different things we offer, this is the different people you can talk to. So we were going to make that, and then unfortunately I had my breakdown and I left. If I had stayed there, I would have kept doing stuff. And I would have kept at it, because I was, me and my friend Robert and like a few other people were like ones that were actually knowing what was going on, and not just listening to, the staff saying like everything's fine when it's not, and at least, like I said before, at least it's not safety issues. Like, I'm lucky that at least Freedman Place is a physically safe place to be. And like, if you just need your own apartment and like need help with like cleaning, and like, you can't cook, or there's issues with meals, or, or you need some level of like nursing. They do have nurses, I think from like 6 in the morning to like, I think like 9 at night they have a nurse. So if you need that kind of care, like, I would totally say like look into Freedman Place. Like, I'm not saying Freedman Place is like horrific like those other places. Like, at least it's safe physically. And like I said, you have some level of residents around you, people around you that you can talk with, and different rooms to sit in. They have activity rooms, they have different things, and they do have staff, and they do have, some level of activities. So I'm not totally like destroying Freedman Place. And I think, like I said, that if you are someone that doesn't need a lot of personal care, that is, doesn't have mental health issues that you need treatment for, or that you need any kind of advocacy on, and doesn't have other disabilities, I would consider it. Honestly, if you're thinking of going to Freedman Place, message me or email me, and I'll talk to you about it. Because I feel like, or have my friend Robert talk to you about it. Because I feel like we know what it's really like, and so we can like make a recommendation, on, what are your needs, why are you thinking of coming here, and like different stuff, because if you're someone also that like goes to school, or, is doing an internship and is out of the building a lot, some of this stuff isn't going to really matter as much, and if you're more like your own person, like Robert lives there and he does his own thing, he helps out around there, and he is a very, strong person, like emotionally, he can deal with all that drama that's there around issues that come up, and, they have a resident council, but it's pretty chaotic. And so, he keeps advocating, and, I try to help him from where I am here. And, so there are residents that are doing good and that help out as they can. And like I said, if I didn't have mental illness, I would probably still be living there, because it's a home, it's a place where you can live. And you're respected, like, as a blind person. It's not like they're going to throw you out because you're blind. And so many other places, they just want to throw you out. People have trouble even getting disability apartments because of some stupid stipulations and rules. And they say, oh yeah, you can get into disability housing, but then you can't get the apartment, and then you can't get personal care services, and then just a huge mess. Or just so Freedman Place, yes, is a good place, but what I'm saying is, what I was advertised, a lot of it I didn't get. So that's why I'm saying, if you want to come to Freedman and you look at their website, like, just don't believe. It's like anything else. You need to do your research. And, if you're going to buy a car, you can't just rely on what the salesperson says about it, because they're going to want to sell it. If you want to go to a doctor's office, you can't just be like, oh yeah, here's this doctor's office in the yellow pages, and I'm going to go there. You have to look things up. Otherwise, you're not going to get what you need, and then you're going to be stuck in a situation. So, and I did do that research. I talked to residents, and, it seemed like they were doing pretty good. And, also, I really needed a place. Like, I was at my parents' house. I was finishing college. I couldn't live at my parents' house anymore. The only other services was like a shared living thing that seemed good, but it would have taken a year to match me with a shared living provider. I didn't have any other relatives or friends to live with. I just needed to get out. So I think that influenced me sort of jumping into Freedman, where if I had just been living, say, here, and I was looking at other possibilities, I could have taken my time and really looked. But I just wanted to say that, like I said, even on the website, it said different stuff. And finally, they took off the website, we do counseling. Because I was like, take that off the website. If you don't do it, it shouldn't be sitting there. Because for some people, that could be the thing of like, oh, I'm blind and I have mental illness, and they have psychologists and counseling. That's great, And so just be careful about that. And, I mean, right now, the executive director is different. I think he has a different plan for where Freedman is headed than it was before. And I think that, the people that were in the staff, like higher staff, had been there for years and years and years. I don't believe had training or degrees in what they were doing, as far as I know. And like I said, this person that's doing it now is, I think he has a different thoughts on it. I think he is just doing a lot for money and a lot to look good. He wants it to be more of a business type environment where people are, shuffled in and out they do some sort of training of how to be independent, and then they're brought out of there, and then more people are brought into there, and somehow that's supposed to look good. And, it's just what I've heard. So I don't know the whole truth on it. So I don't want people to be like, oh, you're just saying a rumor or whatever. I'm saying, this is what I heard from a resident that's got a head on his shoulders and is telling me what's going on, and, that's a great idea. But I think other places do have that. There are so many places that are independent living places that do that kind of program. I think this place stands out as a residential long-term place for people that need it, and it shouldn't be treated as it's a transitional place, because that's not what it was set up for. And, it's just, I mean, he painted, he redecorated, and it's so silly because we're blind. Why spend money on painting the place? You could spend money on technology. You could spend money on hiring people that know how to do technology if you don't know how to do it, which you should. You can spend money on hiring recreation therapists, at least one that has a degree in recreation therapy and that can really help out with activities. You could spend money on hiring, more counselor, at least maybe one counselor, one PhD or LCP licensed counselor to oversee, counseling interns, and then you could have counseling for less money, real counseling. just different ideas that, you could do that doesn't involve painting the dining room. So that's just my thoughts on that. And, I'll say, like I said, they did have a psychiatrist, but he came in only once every couple months, and they said it was supposed to be so good, he'd come once a month or whatever. And he, he didn't check on anyone, even the people that he knew, like, he was given meds for. If you weren't on that list, he didn't see you and he didn't care. Like, the people at Trilogy were like, what, you haven't seen your psychiatrist in like 6 months? I'm like, no. He doesn't follow up. And the doctor that comes is an older man, and I don't know if he does it like for very low cost or for free, because I don't know if like Medicaid covers him. But I saw him once, and then I saw him again, and he's like, "What's your name again?" I was like, "Oh no." So luckily, Trilogy has this wonderful mental health medical clinic that's attached to the organization, and they're very, very good. So I got in with them, and I'm really happy that I did. The only bad thing was that I couldn't get a psychiatrist with them. And that turned out to be bad because I saw this other psychiatrist that was really bad. And he was not good at all. And, that ended up being bad. And then I saw the Freedman psychiatrist like twice, and he messed up my meds. And, the one thing was that they didn't have enough psychiatrists. But, anyway, so the point about Freedman is that, like I said, it's not like it says on the website. I would really do your research and talk to me or Robert on the what goes on day to day, because things have changed a lot since I've left. I think it's very confusing on what this place really is saying they're going to be and what it is, and sometimes I think they're saying stuff more to do with getting money and looking good in the scheme of other organizations than anything else. I mean, if you're doing any services for the blind, and I think even like, day services or whatever should have this in mind, and they don't. Someone that's blind or someone that's deaf even, like, is probably going to have additional disabilities. And like, I've met some people that are blind and they don't have other disabilities, but like a ton of more people I've met have other disabilities. And it could be, someone that could be blind and also deaf. Someone could have mental illness, which is actually really, really common. Ever since I started my mental health list, so many people have joined, and they're like, everyone says the same thing. I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only one that had mental illness and was blind and was facing all these barriers from the different services. And I felt that way too, and that's why I made the list. And I was just shocked at how many people there were. We know there's a ton of blind people with multiple disabilities, because all the schools for the blind now have changed from providing such education that's on the functional level of people that are just blind and don't have these other disabilities, has changed to really catering for people that are blind and have other disabilities. And it's like, where do you think these people are going to go when they're adults? Group homes all these services have restrictions, whether it's insurance, money, staff, what your qualifications are. If you miss this one qualification, you can't be in it. It takes this certain amount of time. You can only be in this service for this certain amount of time. You have to have this and that plan. You have to have this goals. All these services have restrictions, and there's not a lot of them. There's not a lot of organizations that cater for everything that a person has. Where, if you have autism or whatever, then they cater for just the autism, but they shy away from being blind, the blind part of it. And, the mental illness is terrible for that, because all these services, they hear about you're blind, and it's like, no, we're not even going to try. We're not even going to talk to you. And I understand about liability, but there's also, you need to meet the person and like actually talk to the person. Or you need to be like, okay, I'm really sorry I can't do this. Why don't I refer you to someplace else? And they don't have that attitude. They just say no, goodbye. And that's just sick. I mean, they don't understand. How would they feel if they had no services? And I don't think they have any empathy. But anyway, so places for people with different disabilities, I feel like should have a holistic view of disabilities. And like basically come into it, build their services around the assumption that they're going to have people with multiple disabilities coming in. And they should have specialists or have some understanding of the many different disabilities that they could be facing. whether it's, if they're an organization for the blind, then they should know that they're going to get people with autism, they're going to get people with developmental disabilities, they're going to get people with mental illness, and they should, they're going to get deaf people, and they should characterize their services to meet all those different needs. It should be a holistic thing. Okay, you're blind and you have this and that disability. Okay, here are all the people that are going to help you. Therapists, blindness, like teacher, mobility person. If we're going to help you with jobs, then we're going to cater our services to understand all your needs around a job. That you might not want to be at a call center, which is where they want to funnel all the blind people to. We don't, or an assembly workshop. We don't want, that could be too chaotic. What are the different things what are your skills, and how can we match your skills to what your limitations and what your situation is? And that's not the attitude of these places. Not only, even if you're just with one disability, there are limits on what they can provide, and a lot of people don't fit into that box. So, I think there's one organization that provides mental illness, day treatment, and blindness services, and I think it's in New York. I can't get a hold of them. I want to get a hold of them to talk to them and say, how did you do this, and how are you progressing, and how are you changing with the times, and everything else like that, but I can't get a hold of them. So yeah, I hope the people in New York can get a hold of them. So I think day services should have that attitude. And I think that definitely a residential place should have that attitude of like, here are people that are going to be living with, in our place, and we want to provide the best services for them. So we want staff, at least that are, at least the management, like staff, to know about the different disabilities that they're facing, and to have people come in and train the direct service people on, here's all the different issues. Like, here's how you do, like, crisis intervention and, like, aggression management, whatever. Like, here's how you talk to somebody in crisis. Here's how you talk to how you help someone from a panic attack. Here's how you help someone, let's learn all this. Like, Jonathan and the staff here learn this thing called, like, motivational interviewing. And it's basically how you talk to people based on, like, whatever situation they're facing. How do you, like, make a rapport with them? How do you build a relationship and not just be assuming crap about, oh, they should do this, they shouldn't do that, we're going to just call the hospital and send them off. Talk to them, on their level, and, figure out what their needs are, even if it's, like, something that you would think is totally crazy, but it's not. It's what are they thinking, and what are they feeling, and how can you work with them and make a compromise, or make at least a relationship to them that's not based on, like, a power struggle. They should have that training, and because it's for anybody, it's not just for mental health, for any disability, or just good communications management is how to do that. And for developmental disabilities, whatever their needs are, for speech, for how do you teach them, in a way that's going to be on their level, they should have all of that going on at their residential place, and especially if they're going to provide services during the day, like activities and, classes or therapies and stuff like that. If Freedman Place were really going to expand and, like, think about things realistically and of what people need, like, they were thinking once of, like, having people come during the day to have to groups and workshops and classes, and have it be a place for the blind to come. Well, they can't do that if they're redecorating the dining room and focusing on what TV channels people want, or if they're just in this for the money or whatever. They should be contacting other organizations, have good relationships with other organizations, not just like the Lighthouse for the Blind, which has its own issues, but really contacting different organizations that provide for different disabilities and being like, okay, let's talk about this, and let's figure this out. Like, literally, when we were at one of the schools to do internship discussions and stuff, there was a panel of, like, all these different organizations, and I forget what they all were, but different organizations that were, like, nonprofits. And the woman that was, like, leading it had this idea of, like, how about we meet, like, once a month or once every couple months to really pool our resources and talk and, figure out things together and connect and all that. Well, a lot of them literally said, like, we don't have the time. And I felt so bad, because it's like, you know what? I understand that, like, people don't have the time, and, like, people don't, like, they have a busy job and whatever. But it's like, can't you guys do something? I mean, that shouldn't be like the end of the conversation of like, we don't have the time. It should be like, okay, you don't have the time to like come all the way downtown to the psychology school. I understand that. But how about a Skype conference? How about sitting down for an hour and everyone talking on Skype and on the computer and emailing stuff back and forth to each other, and all the technology that's available for people to do their work and not have to be physically in an office. You know, do something like that, because the only way that things are going to get better is for people to actually sit down and like have some sort of positive outlook and try, and not just say like, oh, this has been all done before and we're not going to do anything else. And you know, the budgets. I mean, I know the budget's horrible. Like the budget's this stupid governor is like ruining our life. But there are still ways around it. I mean, places are still open, and people are still fighting, you know, to right this so it's back on an even keel, you know, and organizations aren't just closing down right now just because they're saying, oh, we're going to cut all this money. Like, even before the money was an issue, like the budget was cut, people were still saying, oh, we can't do this and we can't do that over at Freedman instead of working on expanding. And I know that, like, maybe I don't know anything because I don't work in this place, but I know I am a person that's with people that need the services, and like all I am doing is talking to them, and all I'm doing is hearing about places saying no, and you know, not giving any care, you know, proper care, people just like slipping through the cracks, and people like literally having the lowest quality of life, homeless, being in a place like that board and care home I was talking to you guys about, or dying, you know, from whatever their issues are going from, like if it's medical, just like deteriorating, or like a physical disability, or emotionally ending up just giving up on life and committing suicide because, you know, and anyone can say, oh, that's not, you know, there are supposed to be services to help people. Well, you know what? The services failed these people. You know, they totally failed, and like nobody cares. So basically, to wrap up, is to people that are in these disability organizations, you have a lot to like stand up to. Like you have a lot of people that you need to face and say, okay, like we need to make this better. And to people that are like looking into things, what I would say is not just research it from the point of view of like, because when you call a place, they're going to tell you like everything you want to hear so you can get in. Or if you have disabilities, they're just going to say no, and they're going to like say, I don't care. You know, and just be like, no, like, whatever, you know, we can't meet your needs, like, you're blind, so you might fall down the stairs, or whatever, you know, and, like, the public health department is going to question us, and, like, this and that. You know, ask them for a referral, and be like, well, actually, no, I'm not gonna let you just say, no, you know, we can't meet your needs, and liability, and whatever. Like, this is my situation, and I need a place. I went through a screening, and I have just as much right to services as anyone else that went through the screening. I need these services. If I don't get them, I will have nothing, and I will just, you know, have no help and just fade away. You know, and so when you're looking at different places, no matter what it is, try to find other people that have like gone through that same thing, whether it's a person looking for like services for their kids and like residential services or any kind of services, a school or day services or treatments or whatever. You know, find someone that has either gone through it or is going to take the time to call and ask the questions and try to help, which I'm somebody that would do that. You know, I will help anyone that needs help finding anything that I can look into, and I will call and I'll try to talk to them. Granted, because I'm like probably not like related to the person that wants help, like they might not give me as much information, but I can at least get a sense of like what the organization is like. So I guess that's what I have to say on services and the issues I have with services based on like they're not recognizing your needs. And I'm sorry for people that work at Freedman Place of what I said if you don't agree with it, but this is my feelings. This is just my opinion. I'm not saying everybody feels this way, and I'm not saying, like I said, I am not saying that people shouldn't come to Freedman Place. I'm saying that they need to look beyond your advertising, because like it or not, advertising is not reflecting what your organization is actually doing, and I can say that. I can say that because I had to leave due to lack of services. So this is all I'm saying, is to be careful and to do your research and to ask questions. If anyone has any questions about what I've just said, feel free to comment or email. Put my email address in the description, and I am going to tag this for Freeman Place and housing for the blind, and also mental health services. I'm going to tag for anything that I can, so when people are looking up places, then they can find this video, I hope. Okay, everybody, have a good day. Thanks, bye.